Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and I'm going to do a little bit of an interesting video today. I was trying to think of what type of video I wanted to film today, and I could have done first impressions of a knife or something, or I've got a few in the pipeline that I could have busted out, but I felt like talking today. So this is going to be a rambling one. If you don't like the rambling ones, bye. I'm going to talk about modifying knives today. Obviously, this could go down quite a few rabbit holes, so I'm going to try to keep it relatively concise. I don't have a plan, however. So what I want to cover is what types of mods I like to do to knives, why I like to do those mods, what types of mods I'd maybe like to experiment with moving forward, and just kind of modding in general, and why I think it has a place and where I think maybe it goes too far sometimes, and we're just going to kind of see where the topic takes us. But I was thinking back on the first modification I ever did, and it was one of two things. I don't remember for sure which it was, but it was either a clip swap or it was a RIT dye job. I think the first mod I did was probably a clip swap, and it would have been on a Spyderco Para 3. That would definitely be the first knife I ever clip swapped, because it was the first Spyderco I ever really got into, and the placement of a clip on a Spyderco Para 3, in my opinion, is garbage. This one's wearing aftermarket scales, but you can see the clip placement in reference with the lanyard tube is one of the worst that exists. I never use lanyards, dislike them on knives, and so the fact that Spyderco put the lanyard tube kind of in the preferable spot compared to the clip placement, the clip holes, it really bothers me. And this knife, especially with these scales, even with a deep carry clip, I might have to get one of those like really deep ones I think MXG Gear makes, but even with this clip it's still not deep carry because that stupid lanyard hole. So I like swapping clips. If you look at my Spydercos, you'll see that all of them except for, goodness, I don't know if I'm going to be able to hold them all, except for my Danger Pickle, these all have deep carry clips. Let's see, all but two of them are Lynch and two of them are MXG. So I like Lynch clips, I like MXG Gear clips, and I've used quite a few over time, and I'm using quite a few currently. So there's that. Clip swaps, I think, absolutely have a place on certain knives. I also do a lot of clip swaps to Benchmates. So the Mini Freak, or Super Mini Freak, doesn't typically come with this kind of bug out style, their mini deep carry clip. I added one on. The Super Freak doesn't come with the mini deep carry clip. I added one on. That happens to be a factory clip that doesn't come on those knives, but it's my preferred clip from them. So I buy those clips from Benchmade for very cheap, and I put them on to all of the Benchmates. That's the way it goes for me. Other knives come with factory clips that are awesome. So like this milled titanium clip on the Quiet Carry IQ. It's already nice and deep carry, comes right to the butt of the knife. I like the way this clip is just fine. Plus, I don't think there's an aftermarket option for that clip unless I had one custom made or something like that. But for me, on Spydercos, Benchmades, some of these knives that there are a lot of clips available for, I love to just toss a clip on that makes the knife, for me, functionally superior to how it operates with the factory clip. So that's the way I kind of land on clips, if you will. There's a whole nother segment of aftermarket clips, like Adam Purvis clips. This one happens to be just a titanium Adam Purvis clip on my ZT308. I like this clip. I like it better than the factory clip, so I've left it on. But you can go much further than a titanium anodized clip, and you can get some crazy like pocket jewelry, zircutai and zirconium and mokutai and all kinds of out there clips that people add to like add an extra level of value to their knife and an extra level of like true custom feel beyond just like the function, right? And so as much as I respect that, and I'm fine with people liking that, and I get the allure, it's not that it's totally lost on me, that's not something I'm into. I've only ever owned one knife that had a zircutai clip on it, or black Timascus, whatever you want to call it. And it was a Purvis clip that I came into possession of it, and it's a story in its own, but that was on my Sharp by Design Evo Typhoon, and I really liked that clip. However, it came to me anodized. I like to call it kind of oil spill style, where with Zircuti or Timascus and black tie and all that, or black Timascus, they oftentimes anodize it like multiple colors, so it's got like bronze and purple and blue, and like, I dislike that. I don't like it at all. I think it, in my opinion, looks trashy. Sue me. A lot of people love it. More power to you. You can have mine. What's cool about that material, though, is I was able to put it in Wink Rust and Stain Remover and modify it myself, an already modified part, and I was able to remove all the color out of it. And then it was just this cool, like, gray and black, like, almost tiger stripe pattern, kind of, black Timascus. And that, on a black, or on a titanium and carbon fiber knife, like that Evo Typhoon, that looked way cooler than the factory clip, in my opinion. So then I loved it. But the point is, you can go really far with any type of modding in this day and age. Whether it's clips, whether it's scales, whether it's regrinds, there's a lot you can do. So where I started was definitely with clips. And a lot of people at this point probably wouldn't even consider a knife modified just because you've thrown a clip on it. I think technically, on a technicality, you're getting there. You've changed something on it. But like throwing a deep carry clip on a PM2, most people I know who have PM2s swap the factory clip. That's just, almost everybody does. So there's that. The next mod that I did, maybe it was the first, I really don't remember, was writ dyeing. And I think the first knife that I ever personally writ dyed, if I remember correctly, was a honey badger. I don't know if you're familiar with those knives. I don't own any now. I don't own that one anymore. But it had tan plastic scales, FRN or whatever you want to call them, and I dyed it this really cool kind of like cobalt navy blue, and it looked great. There might even be, if you go back on my Instagram far enough, there might be a picture. Anyway, I dyed those scales, and then I heat anodized the hardware to make the hardware bronze, and that looked really cool. And then at the time, I was just kind of trying to try things and see what I liked modification wise, and so I acid etched the blade in ferric chloride. And so I took a knife that was like tan and satin with satin hardware, and I made it this like cobalt blue with bronze hardware and a dark acid etched blade, and it looked pretty cool. I thought it looked cooler than it did factory, but that knife was a budget knife. It was fairly inexpensive, and so it was easy for me to kind of test some things out on that. And then because that was successful, I ended up heat anodizing some more hardware just on the stovetop. And I have found that with certain knives, I just get a kick out of making it mine a little bit. I've kind of fallen out of it a little bit, and so part of me is tempted to start doing a little bit more of that, because it can be a lot of fun. I think at the spirit of modding knives, there's this sensation of making it yours, making it unique to you, putting a little bit of your handcrafting, or someone who you respect's handcrafting if you're sending it out or ordering an aftermarket component, and just making it unique, bringing a certain level of personality to it, so that it's the only one like that. And it's especially fun when, in my opinion, you're playing with kind of a budget and you're not looking at like true custom knives and like getting on someone's books to get a custom knife built for you. Like how yesterday I missed out on the OZ Machine Company books, and I'm going to be butthurt and salty, but proud of him for a while. But if you don't have $600, $700, $800 to throw at a custom knife, if you've got $50 to throw at a Civivi or something, that's a good knife, and you get a nice light G10 color that you can dye any color you want, or you buy a set of aftermarket scales for it in micarta or something that you like, and then you heat ano the hardware and you refinish the blade, and all of a sudden that knife is the only one like it. Amidst a sea of other people who have the same model, yours stands out. And that's fun. I like that about modding. And that's not unique to knives. It exists in many hobbies and aspects of life. In the automotive scene, there are car meets for purists who keep their Ferraris and their McLarens and their Lamborghinis absolutely stock. And then there are car meets for people who modify the piss out of the car that they have and they make it theirs. And there's definitely reasoning behind both sides of that coin, right? There's something about keeping it pure and holding the value in it. Like, there are some knives that I would be afraid to modify once they get nice enough. Like, if you've got the Ferrari of knives, if you're talking about a Koenig Arius, the types of mods that I would do to a Civivi wouldn't be what I would do here. I would modify a Civic heavily because it costs less and there's less value to ruin in it if something goes wrong. Whereas if you're talking about a $250,000 car versus a $25,000 car, that's a different mental game, right? But there are people who modify the piss out of Ferraris and Lamborghinis, and that exists. Just like in the knife world, there are people who have the courage and the confidence to modify very expensive pieces. And so I like that exists, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I like that in the knife world, especially lately, I've seen more and more people modifying their own pieces. I've seen more and more modifiers, like people who that's what they do. All day long, people send them their knives, and there's guys who do regrinds or refinishing or all kinds of just really impressive things that the average person, myself included, couldn't do at home, but that the factories aren't offering as options. There's coatings, there's crazy anodizations, there's, the options are essentially limitless in terms of what you can do to a knife. But as I look at my collection, the mods that I see myself consistently doing beyond pocket clips are basically scale swaps. And I think scale swaps are a fun place for me to spend a little time talking. So I've got a couple of knives here, only a handful really, that are scale swapped. But let's start with this one. So this is my ZT 0620. I always struggle with ZT's numbers. And this one has a TerraTough scale that is completely 100% custom, one-off by my friend Kyle. I'll probably link him down below along with a few of my favorite places to get these items. None of these people have sponsored this video or anything like that, but just the people whose work I enjoy. Now, I reached out to Kyle about the time that I had ordered my TerraTough scales for my Shaman, which I'll hold up next. And I was just kind of on a TerraTough kick. I was liking the idea of it, and I wasn't aware of anybody making a TerraTough scale for this knife yet. And my buddy Kyle does knife mods. His page is ST Knife Mods. And I asked him how much he would charge me to make me a scale if I ordered the material, gave it to him with the knife. He lives local, so it was a hand drop off, and he gave me a very fair price, and so I did it. I ordered a sheet of the material, I gave it to him with the knife, and then he made this for me. And so this TerraTough scale is one of a kind, made by a friend, and that makes this knife fun for me. I like that now this knife has a touch of uniqueness. I still have the factory scale. I can throw it back on at any point if I want this knife to go back to exactly how it was, but in the meantime, I'm enjoying this knife a little bit more because it's fresh now. And I had this knife for a long time. It had started to get not necessarily boring to me, but I just found myself rarely, like very rarely carrying it, and just I'd kind of lost that spark with it. And so this like reignited the knife for me. I like that. Speaking of TerraTough and my Shaman, it's funny, this I need to clean much better. I gotta pull it apart again because it got wet again, and now it's starting to get a couple of little rust spots, which will be easy to take care of. But anyways, this is a Rex 45 Shaman. It started as the Tree Rex, so it had the wooden scales from Knife Center, and I swapped it with these Fireside Co. TerraTough scales. And They are seafoam in color, so I renamed the knife the Sea Rex instead of the Tree Rex. And these are some of my favorite scales I've ever had on a knife. I just love the way they feel. The wood ones that came on it were nice. The G10 scales I've had on Shamans in the past have been fine. There was nothing wrong with the factory scales on this knife, but this takes the knife to another level for me. It makes me enjoy it more. I have more fun when this knife is in my pocket because it's wearing these aftermarket scales. And they're done really, really well. They feel great. They function great. They give me a better grip than the factory scales did without being gritty and aggressive. I really, really like these. In fact, I have a knife on the way, a custom fixed blade, which you'll be seeing very soon, that is wearing these same material scales. So yeah, those are scale swapped, and then this is my pair 3. This pair 3 is wearing the Cerberus Worker 3 scales right now. These are a linen micarta, and they are kind of strider shaped, as you can tell. Before these scales, it was wearing some Rips Garage Tech blue denim micarta scales. I loved those as well, but these have just stayed on it because I've really enjoyed the knife with these scales on it. And these scales are not only a different material than factory scales, but they're a totally different shape than factory scales. They change the ergonomics, they change the way it carries, and in a lot of ways, I feel like they enhance it. I like what they do to this knife. So, scale swaps are just... Oh, I have one more. The most recent one, the GB2, wearing sharp dress knives, natural micarta scales. This knife, this is one of those cases where all of the other knives I've shown so far have been knives where the factory scales I liked. I enjoyed each of those knives before having the aftermarket scales on them. I carried and used them with the factory scales and enjoyed them. Now, I owned a GB2 before. Not for super long, but I had one for a little bit, and I already knew that I did not like the factory scales. They're the same type of scale material that Spyderco uses on the Smock and a number of other knives, where it's a G10 finished with a layer of carbon fiber. I don't really like the way they feel, I don't love the way that they look, and I'm not into those scales. So when I got this knife, I immediately got the scales as well. The scales actually ended up showing up the day before the knife, so the night that I opened the knife, I threw these scales on it. And this is going to be the way that this knife lives as long as it's in my possession. So sometimes, just like with certain knives and the clips, it's almost a necessity to me in order to enjoy the knife to modify it and take it to another level. Other times, it's just to spice a knife up, like it is on my ZT-0620. It just made it fresh again, made it more fun. The Shaman didn't need a scale swap, but it took it to another level for me. I enjoy the knife more with those aftermarket scales on it. So it wouldn't be fair for me to say that I only mod for fun or that I only mod for function. There's definitely a blend between the two. On certain knives, it leans much more in one direction than another. But this knife is a great example of the first time I had one, the scales bothered me. On other knives that had those same scale material, they bothered me. This one had a not deep carried clip. So now, I've been carrying this knife for about a day and a half. I'm going to shoot my first impressions probably tomorrow, as long as I can make the time. But this knife, in this setup, is worlds better than a factory GB2, in my opinion. For me and my uses, I just vastly prefer this setup. It's not even close. To have a good deep carry clip on it, and not only scales that I think look a lot better, but feel a lot better for me, it really enhances the whole experience with the knife. Now, there are some other mods I could do to this knife. I could, if I wanted to, force patina the blade, or I could acid etch it. I could send it out and have it reground. I could do a lot of things to the blade. I could anodize these barrel spacers. I could do a lot of things. Something a lot of people do is where this lock bar or the liner lock is cut, it's a little bit difficult to access. In fact, it's probably the most difficult to access of any liner lock I've ever actually enjoyed. And And so a lot of people will take a Dremel to this other liner and provide more access to it. And a lot of people say that works very well. So that may be something that I consider doing, because that would enhance the usability of this knife. There are a lot of little tweaks you can make to not just make a knife more aesthetically yours, but make it suit your preferences of how to use a knife. Now, there is one place where I'm going to catch myself kind of on that line of thinking, because sometimes I'll get a knife brand new out of the packaging and something like the action will be terrible on it. And sometimes it's not as simple as like, oh, let me drip a little KPL in there and do a little eighth of a turn on the pivot. Sometimes that'll fix an action, and that kind of thing I'm fine with. There are other times when I'll get an action where the lock bar has way too much tension or something like that, or the detent is way too stiff. And I've had a number of people recommend, oh, why don't you disassemble it and rebend the lock bar or adjust that detent or something like that. To me, I think there's a fine line between, I like most of the design, but I want to enhance certain things about it to make it more mine or make it a little bit better. Deep carry clips, scales, stuff like that I'm very comfortable with. But the idea of buying a brand new knife that I need to disassemble and rebend tolerances on loses me a little bit, if I'm being honest. You can call me out in the comments if you think I'm crazy and I should just suck it up and be fine with doing that. But I think that's more of that's on the knife company, quality control wise and design wise, that the functionality of a piece shouldn't suffer. Where it blurs the line on this one is this lock bar. It functions, but it should function better. That lock bar should be easier to access and shouldn't be such a bummer to get to with my thumb to disengage that liner lock. It's a bummer that I might have to Dremel that out to give myself better access. That's something that should have been done from the factory. The scale material, that's just a scale material that they use. I happen to not like it. Others do. The clip being not deep carry, Spyderco doesn't put deep carry clips on anything except for maybe some of their wire clips on like the Para 3 lightweight, stuff like that. But I expect to have to switch the clip on a Spyderco, and that's something that's easy for me to do. Clips and scales and refinishing to make it look different, I'm all on board for that. But the idea of having to rebend a lock bar or reset a detent or stuff like that, it just makes me feel a little bit upset that the knife company isn't getting that right on their own. Because if an action is just bad, some of that is subjective. But I've had actions that are just not even the way they're supposed to function from the knife company. That's a quality control thing. The company who's selling that knife should catch that thing. And so I would rather return or exchange that knife for one that's just done right than have to pull it apart and act like I'm the QC guy at the knife company and be rebending things. That seems weird to me. So I guess if you are in a position where there's a knife you really, really like for a list of reasons, but there's something functionally that makes it inferior to your taste or just in general, then that's a decision you have to make. Like, this knife is so good in so many ways that even if I don't take a Dremel to this lock bar, I'm still going to enjoy and use and carry this knife. I just won't fidget with it quite as much because it's a bummer to have to unlock it to reclose it. But using this knife is a breeze and a dream, frankly. I love this knife. I don't mean to make this video just about this knife. But to some of you, that might be kind of a deal breaker. So you'll know that if you want to have a GB2, that you have to do the type of mod that goes beyond just enhancing the way it looks or feels. You have to actually modify the functional structure of the knife to make it work for you. So yeah, I guess to sum up my feelings about modding, I'm really glad that it exists. I like that it's become more and more of a thing lately in the community, and that people are making pieces their own. And I get a satisfaction out of that, so I imagine others do as well. The types of mods that I do the most are definitely clips and scales, as evidenced by my collection. Those are pretty much all the mods that I have right now. Every now and then I'll do like hardware as well. The Para 3 also has Titanium hardware, full set. This one is a good example as well. The backspacer on the bailout is horrendous from factory, in my opinion. It is an abomination of a backspacer, and I hate it with a passion. It is unacceptably bad as backspacers go. They make it intentionally stick out. They put a glass breaker on it. They do not like it. So this one, I put in this geared titanium backspacer, which I like a lot. This one is from Rock Scale Design, and it is excellent. Changes the knife for me. This one's also reground from River's Edge Cutlery. I happen to not love Tantos for this blade shape and knife profile. I prefer the drop point. They make that super easy. So this bailout is way better for me having a swapped backspacer and a simple quick regrind. That's fantastic that I can make this knife so easily work for me a lot better. But yeah, the mods I do most are scales and clips. I think the mods I want to start doing a little more are probably going to be, I might start doing some more like heat anodizing on hardware and stuff. I have fun doing that. I've found that it's fairly easy for me on just like my electric stove to get it done and make it look consistent and right. And it's fun. I like having bronze hardware. I guess I could probably take it to like blue or purple or something too, but typically I'm more of a bronze hardware kind of guy. Anyways, I get a kick out of it. And I might do, I'm not a big fan of acid etched blades, if I'm being honest, but on certain knives it works. I don't know. Let me know if there's a mod you think I should do and on what knife you think I should do it, and I'll probably say no because it's very much up to me, but maybe you'll have the right idea. I don't know. I just get a kick out of it. I enjoy making things mine. There's a sense of satisfaction that comes out of a knife feeling more unique to you. And I especially get a kick out of it when I have a hand in it. It's a lot of fun to order some parts and install them on a knife. Don't get me wrong. I love doing that. And some of my favorite modified knives are the ones that I just ordered stuff for and assembled. But there's a different sense when you do a part of the process yourself, not just the assembly, I mean, but actually modifying something. If you're actually the one heat coloring that hardware or doing the RIT die, or when it turns out right and it looks the way you envisioned it and that knife is taken to another level by your own hands, I love that. It's a lot of fun. So maybe I need to start making knives. No, probably not. But I do get a sense out of working on them, or a sense of pleasure out of working on them. So yeah, let me know down below how you feel about knife modding. What are your favorite knife mods? What are some that you would never trust yourself to do? Like, I'm not going to go out and regrind a blade. I don't have the tools. I don't have the practice or expertise, and I wouldn't trust myself to not ruin something. But what are those things that you would send a knife out for? And who are your favorite people to send knives out to? Maybe there's a modder that I don't know of that I need to be paying more attention to, although I'm aware of quite a few at this point. Yeah, hopefully this video has made some sense and hasn't just sounded like the ramblings of a madman, but I guess I'm going to leave it there. Mod your knives. It's fun. You don't have to. If you enjoy your knives factory, leave them factory. I have plenty of knives that are bone stock, and they're going to stay that way because I just like the way they are from factory. I don't need to change anything about my ProTech Malibu. This knife is fantastic. The way that it comes, I have zero desire to change it at all. Knives like my Ferrum Forge Stinger. If I was going to modify this, maybe I'd color the hardware bronze. That could look cool. If the hardware and the clip were bronze or something, maybe even the liners if that's possible, that could be cool. Maybe. But I also love it the way it is. I don't feel like I need to change this to like it. And so maybe this will be one that in a year, to keep it fresh, I'll do something on, or I don't know. yeah, we're just going to leave it there. Mod your knives or don't. I don't care. I'm going to mod some of mine, and I have fun with it. And I guess that's a good summary of how I feel about it. I'm going to mod some of mine. Some of them don't need it at all. But on some of them, I see it as a necessity. Some of them, it's just plain fun. And some of them, maybe you mod and then you put them back to stock because you didn't like how it turned out. I don't know. Figure it out. Thanks, guys.